see myself talking and I see myself telling myself that we are live. So here we are. Oh my goodness. It's time for this is episode 6 of my journey, a Butterfly Bootcamp Tale. And how do I begin? Oh, I know how I want to begin. I actually made a little outline because I like to do that. I'm going to begin by telling you what the theme is for today. And the theme is the word enjoyment. So I want you to just sort of allow that word to resonate in your ears. Just think of it. Enjoyment. Go ahead and take a couple of deep breaths as you're doing that. And do whatever invocations or affirmations you need to do in order to feel that you are grounded and supported and loved and held by the universe and whatever forces are benevolent and move their way through your path. Because this word, enjoyment, look what it has right at the very center is the word joy. And then I started thinking about the way we use the word enjoy, even if we don't have the M-E-N-T, the enjoyment. So the act of enjoying something, right, is enjoyment. But we sometimes tell people to enjoy something. Go enjoy the fruits of your labor, enjoy the show, right? So we are literally wishing them the act of imbuing joy into that experience. And then I realized that that's kind of the key to everything. When we can look at any activity in our life and imbue it with joy, imbue it with our own joy, so it's not that we're getting joy from things, though we can, if it feels good to say that you want to receive joy, also, that's great too. But I do think it can also be a purposeful, conscious, even if it's just consciously opening the channels for joy to flow, if that is a better metaphor that works for you. And I feel like I want to make sure the audio is working. I feel like the audio is working. I saw the audio working there. Yes, the audio seems to be working there. Okay, so I think everything's working fine. Okay, beautiful. And the reason I say all that about the word enjoyment is because sometimes the tasks that we have in life are not automatically enjoyable, like cleaning the toilet, for example. I don't think there's ever a time I have ever found the act of cleaning a toilet enjoyable. However, there is a certain satisfaction, at least. I don't know that I would necessarily call it joyful, but to know that I'm sitting on a very clean toilet, I don't know about you, but that to me gives me a little bit more ease in life. To know that I don't have to squat or wash it down first, or don't let anything touch my skin, or, yeah. And so I sometimes think of whatever is your spiritual practice, whatever it is, yoga, meditation, breathing, whatever is your thing, it's sort of like cleaning our spiritual toilet, I feel. I feel like it's not necessarily joyful, the act, but if we bring joy to it, it can be smoother and it can be a more satisfying process and experience. And you know me, I'm all about the process, which also means the songs that have come through, I say songs, I think it's one song, but it kind of came through in bits and chunks and pieces, a bit like Frida's Babies, if that's not too crass a reference. If it is, you're my people. This is all to the goth girls out there. You know who we are. We're in October and we're heading into Halloween. And so we're all fascinated with the macabre. We're fascinated with death. And literally this morning, when I asked the tarot what kind of guidance I needed for preparing for this live stream, and the three cards that came up were death, inverted, but it was death, and death is always rebirth anyway, so that's, no surprise. The devil, which is usually all about addictions, and temperance. And Temperance is an old friend of mine. She comes periodically just to remind me about balance. And it's very interesting that temperance showed up right next to the devil, because temperance is about being, not going into one extreme or another and not leaning into addictions, addictive behaviors, vices, negativity, etc., 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 whatever the devil represents to you. And so what was that? So death, right, the devil and temperance. And the reason I bring that up is because somehow, I do know that some of my habitual behaviors tend to lean back into the comfort food reality, which I used to live in, years ago. And I think this time around, my psyche was like, okay, you previously blamed it on your workaholic lifestyle. So now we're going to ask you to really understand what is your relationship with those comforting patterns of eating and drinking. And then temperance comes up because, and I want to just say, first of all, like anybody who is sober, like, clean and sober, I just want to applaud you, because I know that that is a very difficult path to walk. First of all, to admit, and then to get the help, and then to be on the, clean and sober path. I know that that takes a lot of courage and moral fortitude that not everybody has. And so I just want to applaud that. But I feel like this message was coming through for me, is that for me, it's not about all or nothing. It's not about, do I drink or not, or do I eat this or not? And in fact, earlier in this journey, a few weeks ago, the question came up about how I think I was using the word cheat, about whether I was on my dietary norms or not. And then I realized cheat is such an awful word when you're working with your own often self-sabotaging behaviors, because cheating adds morality to the equation, when we would be much better served to think of it less as a moral situation, and instead rather to understand both the very basic physiological and nutritional aspects, but then also understand and compensate for the emotional realities surrounding eating and drinking, right? Those are our kind of foundational human habits. We need to eat and drink in order to survive and, propagate, right? So when the message came through for me is that it's about being in balance. So it's not about whether I do or do not. It's about understanding how my body responds to those things and understanding the impulses. And if my impulse is to, out of boredom or loneliness or whatever is the trigger emotion, if I'm going to the consumption of food products for those reasons, then it's good for me to really recognize when those are happening, and then just go, oh, okay, I'm feeling that as an emotional mechanism and not specifically as needing fuel for my physical body right now. And then I can try to say, okay, well, what else can I do that's comforting, that's not eating or drinking, that can be a replacement activity that's a healthier activity, like taking a walk or going outside and getting some breath of fresh air or whatever the case may be. And so for me, that message was, again, less about doing or not doing and less about morality and more about being very in tune with one's own sense of balance. Balance on all levels. Balance emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually, all of them. So, goodness gracious, okay. I'm not even at the beginning of my outline. That's just all about the word enjoyment. And probably this whole outline is only going to take like 5 minutes to go over. But I did want to go over, since this YouTube series is about the medicine wheel and my way of going through it that I model in Butterfly Bootcamp. You could say I teach it, if you want to use teach as a word, but really it's about being a companion and sort of auxiliary support for your own journey. That's sort of what it feels is my proper position to be called that. And sometimes the medicine wheel can be very emotional and sometimes it can be painful. And so I think remembering that we are adding joy to the process all the time can sort of lighten the load of what we have to do. So I just want to give a very kind of brief sort of overview of, this is episode 6, and so the first 3 episodes were in the south of the medicine wheel, and the second 3 episodes were in the west of the medicine wheel, and I kind of want to make sure that I've given a bit of a coherent overview of those 2 experiences, because I think sometimes it can all seem very, very foggy and messy unless you have like here's what's happening here. So the south is where we shed the past, the way a serpent sheds her skin. And for me, this kind of all centers around a core question. What if you knew you only had 1 year left to live? And I know, they often use that with the hypothetical cancer diagnosis. What if you knew you only had a year left because you had cancer? Well, why do we have to wait until we have cancer, right? Why can't we just imagine, well, what if this were my last year left on Earth? How do I want to experience it? And also, how do I want to be remembered, right? Do I want to be remembered? Maybe I want to, go away into anonymity and never come in contact with humans again. Maybe that's where you are. And I may or may not have been there a few times in my life. So for me, the question of, well, if I knew I had 1 year left to live, that meant doing a lot of healing. That meant doing a lot of like being okay with, if I died tomorrow, I would feel like I lived a full life. And a lot of that just takes taking a step back and looking at what you have experienced, what you have been through, what, challenges you've overcome, what betrayals you've overcome, what traumas you've overcome, right? And then just sort of celebrating your own resilience and celebrating your own fortitude and celebrating your own, not, falling into the chaos and depths of all the other nonsense that's out there in the world, right? So, and in that process in the South, there were a few basic skills that we learn, which I think I kind of maybe hinted at in the videos that I did. And the first one is the very basic opening of the Viracocha. And I'd like to actually just go ahead and demonstrate that again, because it just feels so good to do it. And every time you do it, you strengthen it. And so the more often we can do it, and then as you're there, really sensing to make sure that it is, that its integrity is intact, because it is sort of like our protective force field around us. So, sip water if you need to. I keep reminding myself, water is good for me, water is life. And what that does is it makes my body feel good as I'm drinking the thing that is good for me. And so then that stimulates the emotional response to want to drink water more because it's good for me, because water is life. Okay, so take a couple of nice deep breaths. And put your hands in prayer pose at your heart center. And on your next inhale, raise those above your head into that orb of light that you can imagine just above your head, the 8th chakra, and just pull the folds of it down over you. That orb of light, the threads of light, those woven threads of divine light that are there to protect you. Just feel them coming down around you. Just sense how it feels. Is there a draft coming in from somewhere? Does anything need to be repaired? You can, I like imagining with my fingertips that I'm just weaving like a little spider, just weaving this ball of light around me. And then just sort of sit and enjoy how that feels for a moment. And then I'd like to also just go ahead and open it over everybody who's listening, either currently live or on the replay. Just so that we establish this loving container that is the social fabric that unites us. So that is one of the very first skills we learn as shamans, and it's really just a self-healing skill, and it's just a protective skill, and it's something that connects us to our own divine essence. Then, and I had grand plans again to download some images and bring them into my little, software to do visual aids. And I guess I just didn't feel like doing all that. And so I'm just going to share with you the memory of these experiences, and then you can see some of those photos on my social media. The sand painting is a skill that we can develop as shamans. And I'm just saying we as shamans because all of us has the potential to be, let's say, shamanic. I know some people like to shy away from the actual noun shaman, and if that's how you are, great. But we can add shamanic practices into our lives, and we can turn our lives into shamanic lives. And those are really just to deepen our ability to have connection and communion with the divine elements that are already surrounding us once we just open up our receptors and our perceptors to the experience. So the sand painting is one of the ways that we can invite the elements of nature into our meditation practice. So people talk about going out into nature to meditate, but when you do a sand painting, you have your own outdoor space somewhere, and or if you don't have outdoor space, you can put it in a window at least, and maybe open the window and let the light and the air come in, because you want to see the way the natural elements interact with the way you have placed your objects that you are meditating with into the area. And it also encourages us to spend several days on a meditation and not just one time, and to just see how the insights that come through over time and with the influence of the natural elements, that is a skill intending our ability to interact with the natural elements in a more skillful way. And then there is, of course, the fire ceremony, which I just did another one last night. We're sort of at the tail end of some full moon energy. And I realized as I was finding some tax paperwork that I had some very old records that I had no sense keeping around. They were like 8, 9, 10 years old. And so I decided that that was going to be a good idea to have a fire ceremony. And some of those old records were things like, my ex-husband's proof of the child support payments that he sent to me, which I have no reason to need to look at those ever again. So it felt really nice to just release all relationship to old financial relationships so that I can make space for new energy in that area of my life. And then, of course, we didn't really talk about it, but in the program, we do teach you how to make your own agua florida, your own spirit water. And it's the way we imbue a liquid essence, which is metaphoric of the water of life. And so we do end up using vodka just because the other things that we put in it need to be preserved. And so because you're putting in flower essences, you're putting in herbs, you might be putting in essential oils. Anything that is medicinal to the area where you live is good to put in your spirit water, because then not only are you calling in protection, you're also calling in these healing elements. So anybody can make it. Again, I call my program shamanic artistry not because I want to mystify what I do, but on the other hand, on the contrary, I want to demystify what I do so that I can show you that anybody can be a shamanic artist. You just have to allow yourself to enjoy, find the things that you enjoy and develop them with creativity. And then, of course, as the kind of summary of my own process of going through the South this time, I felt like the call to me from Spirit this time around was to really step into crondom, the wise woman, the wise elder, to just go ahead and step into that stage of my life. I'm already post-uterus. I've been around the block a few times, and I have been feeling called to share as much as I can with as many people as want to hear what I have to say, because when we trained with the Four Winds Society, there was really a sense that I felt that the world needs as many of us as are willing to learn these skills and this wisdom so that we can be living in harmony with our natural environment. It's like the earth is, please go out and share this knowledge. So here I am, stepping into it. And then, of course, we have to talk about the West. Let's talk about the West, baby. So the West is, and remember, we're adding enjoyment to everything here. The West is the place of facing death and facing our fears. It's the place where we meet our archetype, that is the jaguar, that is our protector. The West is where we learn the way of the peaceful warrior, where we are always prepared and always protected, but we never, ever choose to fight. And then the West, well, the South and the West is where we learn excuse me, about the different levels of awareness and different levels of perception. So being able to perceive things on the physical level, being able to perceive things on the emotional level, being able to perceive things on the spiritual level, on the energetic level, on the level that we call the mythic map. So that's where we're going to get into in the North, where we can really support finding what one's own sort of mythic life compass it can shift, and then really tapping into path and purpose. So we learn about those levels of awareness, and then also this idea that there are toxic emotions, and then there are ways to heal those toxic emotions. And Alberto aligned these toxic emotions with the 7 deadly sins. just because that was sort of a convenient organizational system that already existed. And then rather than looking those at sins, again, bringing that morality into it, looking at them as toxic emotions. Like when we lean into those toxic emotions, what do we need to do to heal them so that we're not leaning into, and again, that's about balance. It's not about right or wrong. And so there's, and each one can have its own rite of passage. So being able to be at peace, we often feel the toxic emotion of wrath, like when we want to rage against everything, then we have to cultivate inner peace. If we have been feeling like we don't have enough and we're getting greedy, then we actually need to begin being generous of the resources that we do have, like time and energy. The way to heal lust is with purity of intent, and that has to do with how we all experience our first love. Sloth, the way to heal sloth is through courage, which I found really resonant with me this time around. Healing envy through compassion, healing gluttony through temperance. Again, there's my tarot card reading from this morning. And of course, that is having to do with the rite of passage of becoming a sage. And then, of course, the final rite of passage is death, and that's usually pride that is in the way of a successful transition, and we heal that with humility. And then we have breath work, we have cord cutting, healing 3 deaths, looking at the drama triangle. Those are all just sort of the kind of ideas and skills. But really what I'm also doing right now is I'm preparing myself for the cocoon. And so for the cocoon, I'm not doing 3 live streams. I'm going to wait probably until mid-December, probably right before the solstice, to do 1 live stream, because the cocoon is where I'll be going on a social media diet, and I will be doing deep shadow and dream work. And one needs a bit of private time for that to be successful. And so this is all the things that we do in the South and the West in order to prepare for that. So I don't want to go to, I was going to go into a little bit more of the drama triangle and how we use that to heal. I will talk about the ones that came through for me. So the one that came through for me in healing a past life in which I suffered the most was one where in that particular life I felt unmothered. I did not feel in that particular life as if I was, that I had that very basic feeling that a baby can and hopefully should feel with its mother, that it feels safe, supported, and loved. Just the very basic 3 conditions for human emotional well-being. So in this lifetime, I did not have that. And I suddenly had this realization of how when one's very core being never gets that sense of, if you're born into not having that, you just never even know what that is. And that to me was a really kind of profound awareness. So that as much as we who have felt that and can share that with others, here's what it feels like to just be safe, supported, and loved. Then the more we do that for others, the more we can heal that in ourselves. And then there was a lifetime, it was kind of strange. I don't know if I was an animal or if I was with animals, but there was a tree sloth in a forest fire. And there was this fear of not being able to move fast enough to escape the fire. And I was really linking that to my workaholic tendencies of feeling like I have to do all the time, whereas the tree sloth is one that is really just taking slow time for that reality. And I often have a hard time just not doing anything. Like it's really hard to me to just sit and not do anything. And so that one was an interesting one about that sense of feeling like I have to work too fast. And then there was this lifetime where I had to learn what it meant that I was a sorcerer at some point. And a sorcerer, by our definitions, is one who actually uses the same skills as being a shaman, but uses them to harm people, either for revenge or for greed or for whatever reason. And I think in my journey so far, I had always just assumed that if I knew this knowledge, I would not ever use it to harm another person. And that I always assumed that any lifetime in which I was harmful to others was because of some oppressive structure or system that I inhabited, like a Catholic church, for example. But in this one, I realized, oh, no, 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 no. There was a lifetime in which I just deliberately used, and I have always been sort of fascinated with Medea and Medusa, right? And so I think just knowing that any one of us has the capacity to do great evil, and any one of us has the capacity to do great good. Once we recognize that we have that capacity, our job, our task, our beauty way is to find the pathway of balance through all that and not ever allow ourselves get too heavily into any one extreme direction or another. Because I think for me, the feeling of, I'm just going to go ahead and call it superiority. I'm not saying I did feel that, but in hindsight, if I look at some of the ways I interacted with people, I think it could have been construed as superiority. And y'all know how much I hate that kind of hypocritic, I'm better than you mentality. I've got plenty of that in certain institutions when I was younger. So really, I needed to remove that because we're all on a journey. Everybody's on a journey, and everybody's journey is different. And neither journey is better than any other journey. And so when we look at it as this process that we can imbue joy into every step of it, even when we are mucking around in the shadows, it can make it a lot easier to just move through it and get out of it to the other side. So the kind of sort of end anthem phrase that came through, and again, the song came through in chunks. I'm going to try to give it to you mostly in order, but there was this kind of phrase that said, what are you waiting for? A rainy day? Don't wait for tomorrow. Enjoy yourself today. Imbuing joy into every process. Yes, even grief. Yes, even how we tell stories of pain and trauma. Yes, even shadow work. So don't save your joy for a rainy day. Enjoy yourself today. So I'm going to try to sing this song for you in order, in chunks. There may be some spoken word parts because some of them I think are really more poem than song just yet. And let's see what I have over here. Okay, yes. And this time I decided to play with all the fun little Apple loops that they have. Oh, and I think this guy, I don't know that I like him yet, so I'm going to mute him. I'm going to mute my previous vocals, I think. Actually, no, you know what? I'm going to let this one go. I might sing along with myself because I don't remember this part that well. Isn't it funny? Something I wrote just a few days ago, and I'm like, wait, how did that go? So then that one... Okay, we're going to do this in chunks. So, you know what I will do, actually? Just so that you can hear the order in the words alone. I'm just going to speak the words to you in what I think is the order of the song, and then I'll sing through some parts for you. And the song came through in a very silly way, and it reminded myself never to take myself too seriously. So, this is called Rainy Day Song. The squirrel and the chipmunk always seem like they're playing around, but all the while they're laboring to keep their families safe underground. So bring a sense of playfulness to the daily tasks you face. Remember, this experience is not meant to be a race. What have you squirreled away today? What have you squandered? What parts of you have remained the same as far as you've wandered? No matter how many times I feel the seasons of the earth, no matter how many times I've felt my own death and my rebirth, every time I feel the fall, the shadow of another season, I tell myself, just one more layer, peel it back, and it just keeps getting easier. It keeps getting easier. What have I squirreled away today? What have I hidden? What have I squandered? What parts of me are still the same every time I come home? What parts of me are transformed from the path I've roamed, from the path I've wandered? What are you waiting for? A rainy day? Don't wait until tomorrow. Enjoy yourself today. How can I possibly love the West, the place of shadow and death? Why in the world am I drawn to come back here, the place where I face my fears? How can I carve away at the clay that shapes me, the wounds and the baggage that drapes over me? How can I use my own hands to mold me and surrender to divine light to enfold me? What are you waiting for? A rainy day? Don't wait until tomorrow. Enjoy yourself today. I look into my shadow so I can find my light. I train like a warrior, but I never choose to fight. My courage comes from loving and forgiving everyone. Yes, even that low-down, dirty, nasty son of a gun. I heal my wounds so I can peel away the scars. I follow my heart and seek guidance in the stars. I accept all parts of me, even in the shadows and dark. The beauty is in finding my way to balance all these parts. So, let's see how it sounds with a bit of music. And again, you guys know these are in process. This is raw. This is not complete. But let's let it be a fun experiment. And if you can hear me, then I don't have to have the monitor on myself, right? Right. Squirrel and the chipmunk always seem like they're playing around, but all the while they're laboring to keep their families safe underground. So bring a sense of playfulness to the daily task to face. Remember, this experience is not meant to be a race. Squirrel away today. What have you squandered? What parts of you have remained the same as long as you wandered? No matter how many times I feel the seasons of the earth, no matter how many times I felt my own death and my rebirth, every time I feel the fall, the shadow of another season, I tell myself just one more layer, and it keeps getting easier. Just peel it back. It keeps getting easier. What are you waiting for? A rainy day. Don't wait tomorrow. until tomorrow. Enjoy yourself today. Okay, I need to pause for a moment because I think the next part I'm just going to do a cappella because I don't think I like what music is there, but I might give myself a little beat. So, this is... Oh, you know, I'm going to let myself sing on this one too because I just can't remember. Oh, it goes. So, here we go. This is a third or a fourth part that I'm not sure where it goes yet. Here we go. I look into my shadow so I can find my light. I train like a warrior, but I never choose to fight. My courage comes from loving and forgiving everyone. Yes, even that nasty, low-down, nasty son of a gun. I heal my wounds so I can peel away the scars. I follow my heart and I seek guidance in the stars. I accept all parts of me, even in the shadow and dark. The beauty is in finding my way to balance all these parts. So, that's where we are at the end of episode 6, Butterfly Bootcamp, my journey, a Butterfly Bootcamp Tale. So if you enjoyed this, please consider subscribing. If you found any kind of value at all, if this is helping you or supporting you, consider donating to my virtual tip jar. It should be in the description there below. It's in increments of $5. You can donate $5, $10, $50, $100, $500, whatever you feel called to. And if you're curious about shamanic artistry and how you can use shamanic energy medicine to develop your own creative practice, just reach out. Let's chat.